My name is Michael Ruggio. I'm a partner at Taylor English, and I'm an adjunct professor of blockchain law at the University of Pittsburgh Law School. We're going to be talking about a revolutionary concept called Decentralized Autonomous Organizations, also known as DAOs. It's a revolutionary change and transformation in the way a corporate entity is existing and will continue to grow over the next century. The Decentralized Autonomous Organization, it is an entity which is decentralized. It's self-governing and therefore autonomous, and it's an organization, but it's unlike organizations that we traditionally know. It doesn't run under the same rules as a typical corporation. It doesn't have a board of directors, it doesn't have shareholders, and it doesn't have a governing hierarchy which dominates an organization, which is the traditional format for a corporation. DAOs have been created over the last 5 years, really, in an evolutionary concept to people trying to achieve an objective, a pointed objective very often. Giving an example is one called Constitution DAO, which was a recent DAO, and the purpose of the DAO was very focused. It was to purchase the last existing copy of the Constitution, which is for auction on Sotheby's. The intention, of course, was to acclimate the transition of a corporation into this focused purpose and thereby achieve the objective, which was to purchase this last existing edition in private hands of the US Constitution. To do so, the DAO, Constitution DAO, issued tokens in place of shares. It actually was so successful that it went from starting at 4 million and had $47 million in tokens and assets to purchase and make a bid on the US Constitution. And it did so. Unfortunately, there was higher bidders and it did not achieve its objective. But its focus, purpose, and actually execution as a typical corporation, but in the autonomous world of DAO, was completely successful. There are many benefits, and there are some challenges to DAOs. The benefits are really working within a concept of the blockchain where everything is completely automated. There's no hierarchy to control the outcome of what you're intending to do. In fact, it's a completely democratic entity. Each person that purchases a token for the DAO is tantamount to a shareholder, but a shareholder in a very equal system. There's no management, there's no third level groups coming in to control or manage the organization. It's actually running based on the smart contracts which exist within the whole entity of the DAO to execute on the ultimate purpose of the DAO. So it's really the creation of a focused, purposed entity where there is a community consensus agreement purchased by these tokens to effectuate on the ultimate intention of this entity called the DAO. Like any entity, there's always challenges when you join, whether it's a traditional entity as a shareholder or whether it's a DAO and purchasing a token. There's always the entity of where are we going to achieve our objectives? In other words, what is the ultimate intention of the organization and how are we going to get there? In the DAO world, it's highly efficient, highly effective. Everyone purchases a token. In the protocols, it's already laid out the intention and the focus and the directive to what is going to be achieved for the DAO. And then, of course, it goes forward in the blockchain world where everything is basically systematic. It's in a digital world and there's really no changes, modifications, unless the token holders who can vote make a determination to change the course and direction of what the ultimate intention is of the DAO. They're really transforming the way business is being conducted across the board in almost every aspect, not simply in the areas where they're dominant now, which is the cryptocurrency area where Ethereum and Bitcoin, all these really are DAOs, but it's now transitioning into the healthcare arena, as I just said before, in very people getting together to purchase very rare objects, whether it be in New York or internationally. It's highly used and effective in the benefits world. And it's now moving very, very quickly into the charitable world, where there's a focused charitable intention. And the people who signed up with the tokens want that to be effectuated. The DAO is perfectly suited to effectuate on that, where there aren't hierarchies, there isn't expenses of third parties and administration that comes into play. It achieves its objective in a highly efficient, effective manner going forward. And that's really something that is transformative in the entity world of corporations. DAOs are going to transform the way corporations operate and the way corporations achieve their objectives. It offers an opportunity in the world of the blockchain, which is highly efficient and effective, to get to an objective in the most cost-efficient, effective manner. And it will actually, in a competitive world, it will outdistance any real challenger with regard to that in the traditional corporate world. And several of the reasons are: one, it eliminates the middleman. It eliminates the management structure and cost. It eliminates the ineffectiveness of counter decisions and challenges and an effective corporate structure. And it effectuates on using smart contracts and the digital world to achieve objectives in a very, very quick manner. So all of these are really showing that the DAO is transforming corporate entities across the board. Now, it won't happen in the next 2 or 3 or 5 years, but 10 years out, the indications are very strong that DAOs could be almost 1/3 of all corporations, not only domestically, but internationally as well. I think if you go online and look at what's happening now, not simply in the theoretical concepts of DAOs, but in the actual corporations that are being created right now in almost every industry, and how they're structured, how they're moving forward, and how they're actually achieving their objectives, Constitution DAO being just one of many. And then seeing the expansion of these groups internationally. Again, DAOs are not limited to a domestic market. They often run internationally and provide even greater opportunities when you start using them in an international concept where they're not limited by local laws or local restrictions. It's an amazing opportunity. So I think whether you're a lawyer or a businessman, they're going to be the future of what's going to happen in corporate entities going forward. Really, just a transformation at every level of how a corporation operates, and the opportunity to have democracy really step into corporations where it didn't before. This is really not just transforming the structure of a corporation, but the whole concept of how a corporation is and should be run going forward. So it's really an equalizing of the opportunities for all individuals to enter into corporate partnerships going forward. The DAOs really, in many areas, have still not been recognized. So as an entity, they're really a question mark when you take it into a court and you say, well, we have a DAO issue, and the court say, well, we don't recognize DAOs in this jurisdiction. Now, internationally, they're much more recognized. But what happens is, if you create a DNO, let's say in Germany, and you have participants internationally with regard to that, there really is no limitation at this point in time for any regulations from any nationality, any nation, to control that at this point. So it's a bit of the wild, wild west with regard to DAOs, and they're operating in that sphere, which is at this point a tremendous advantage, because the DAOs are now basically under the radar of many of these rules and guidelines, and are even able to effectuate their opportunities at a greater speed, a greater extent, with less cost. Now, I believe ultimately there will be regulations which will limit how they operate and the guidelines with regard to their way they are seen. Well, I think Taylor English really is at the forefront at this point with regard to the understanding of DAOs and the understanding of blockchain. There are several other firms that are beginning to enter this market and get a great understanding from the legal and ethical perspectives of how they operate, but most importantly from the business aspects. I think we have a unique vision as to how they operate, how they will operate, and actually being to create them and moving forward. But there's also organizations that have become, there's the Government Blockchain Association and many associations that are growing right now that are going to be very big parts of the compliance and regulatory aspects of blockchain, as well as the DAOs going forward. So I think we're seeing an explosion at this point of organizations, both from the legal and non-legal aspects, and especially the consulting firms are heavily into this area and are growing dramatically, invested tens of millions of dollars into the area of DAO, seeing it as the future of corporations. And the consulting firms are a very good bellwether of what's going to happen in the future. Thank you very much for listening today, and I look forward to having greater opportunities to do more podcasts in the future.